Hey YouTube, what's going on? Snowflarky's Emos here today with another deck profile. Today it's my Gaia the Fierce Knight deck. Gaia is probably my favorite of Yugi's iconic monsters from the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters anime, and I've been a big fan of playing Gaia decks ever since this card here, Sky Galloping Gaia, came out in the mid 2010s. So Sky Galloping Gaia, of course, just a cool retrain of the Gaia Dragon Champion. And then, of course, when Rise of the Duelist came out a little bit back, we got even more Gaia support, and very much enjoyed playing this deck. It's a fun going second OTK strategy. So with that said, let's get into the cards. So starting off with our monsters, I am playing 3 copies of Gaia the Magical Knight. Now this card always counts as a Gaia the Fierce Knight monster, and if you control no monsters or your opponent controls a monster with 2300 or more attack, you can normal summon this card without tributing. And if this card is normal or special summon, you can special summon a level 5 dragon monster from your hand or graveyard in defense position. You can only use this effect once per turn. So that's pretty nice. 2300 attack summons out our level 5 dragon, which is our Curse of Dragon, gets our combo piece and gets things going. Of course, that monster we're going to be summoning is Curse of Dragon, the Cursed Dragon. Great name. 2000 attack, 5-star retrain of Yugi's Curse of Dragon. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add a spell or trap from your deck to your hand that specifically lists the card Gaia the Dragon Champion in its text. And if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target one Gaia the Dragon Champion in your monster zone and negate any effects of face-up monsters your opponent currently controls with attack less than or equal to the attack of your Gaia the Dragon Champion. So that's pretty cool. That means if you fusion summon him off the field, you can target the Gaia the Dragon Champion that you summon and negate effects for him of your opponent's monsters based on the attack. So that's pretty powerful because Gaia the Dragon Champion, if you fusion summon it with the fusion spell, will have over 5,000 attack. So incredibly powerful. This is the card that we want to be summoning off of Gaia the Magical Knight, because when Gaia's effect activates, we want to summon him, grab the spell or trap, then we can make our fusion. In addition, I'm playing 1 copy of Curse of Dragonfire, just another level 5 dragon target that we can use to fusion summon. If this card is normal special summon, you can target a field spell on the field and destroy it. Pretty cool. If your opponent has a field spell we want to get rid of. And once per turn, you can fusion summon a fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters you control as fusion materials, including this card. So pretty nice, kind of a backup, not ideal as Curse of Dragon, but can come in handy. So it's a good one of to have. Next, I'm playing 3 copies of Artillery Catapult Turtle. This card is pretty great. You can tribute 1 monster to special summon 1 Gaia the Fierce Knight monster or a level 5 dragon monster from your hand or deck. And you can only use this effect once per turn. So this is nice. We can use this to pull out Gaia the Magical Knight, or we can use this to pull out Curse of Dragon, whichever we are missing to get the deck moving. Just a nice little piece to have, a good way to spend our normal summon. In addition here, we're playing some extra Gaia cards. 2 copies of Gaia the Fierce Knight Origin. It's another Gaia the Fierce Knight card, which is important to have in the name. We can use this card as 2 tributes to tribute summon a warrior monster. That doesn't come up very often, but we can also special summon this card from our hand by discarding a level 5 warrior monster. So any excess Gaia the Magical Knights or other Gaia monsters with a lot of stars that we have can be used to just get this guy out on the board, which gives us extra 1600 attack when we're trying to push for game. And most importantly, during the battle phase, you can banish this card from your graveyard to target a monster on the field whose current attack is different than its original attack and make its attack become its original attack. Pretty important if our opponent has a boosted monster that we need to lower its attack, or more importantly, one of the Gaia Magical Knights lowers its attack to pop cards on the field, and this can be used just to restore it to base if we get under. So a pretty good card to have in the deck. I'm playing 1 copy of Lord Gaia the Fierce Knight. Pretty cool card. If your opponent controls a monster and you don't, you can special summon this card, so that just makes it a free special summon. Sometimes that extra body is needed for the game. 2300. And if a monster with higher attack than this card is special summoned to your opponent's side of the field, you can make this card gain 700 attack. So mostly just in there for the free summon and the extra Gaia the Fierce Knight name, but certainly comes in handy. Next, I'm playing one copy of Soldier Gaia, the Fierce Knight. Pretty sweet card, 2600 attack, and we contribute a Dragon Fusion monster to special summon this card from our hand, which is pretty sweet. That kind of makes this the game finisher, because if we're just short and tributing our monster for 2600 attack can close out the game, we can do so. Uh, and that makes it pretty sweet. Next up, I'm playing two copies of Gameciel the Sea Turtle Kaiju. Just a nice thing to have because 2200 attack isn't too big. It's still possible to OTK through it, and we contribute off an opponent's annoying monster that's going to negate our card effects or that we can't out. So just a good option to have. Probably going to bump this up to 3. And last for monsters, I'm just playing 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. We're trying to go second in this deck. I have a lot of spell and traps to try to break boards and clear things, but Ash Blossom is just nice to have because against a lot of other decks, especially more fun fun casual decks that this deck goes up against, Ash Blossom can just do a lot to disrupt our opponent's plays just enough that they can't, go all out and combo us out of the game. We can stop them from making an optimal board, and that could be enough for Gaia to close out. So, of course, if you don't know, Ash Blossom is a hand trap that says when a card or effect is activated that includes any of the following, you can discard this card to negate it, adding a card from the deck to the hand, special summoning from the deck, or sending a card from the deck to the graveyard. All a lot of things that a lot of decks want to do, and it's just a good card to do so. That is it for the monsters. Next, going into our spell cards, I am playing 2 copies of Gateway to Chaos. This is a field spell that just says when this card is activated, add a Blackluster Soldier Ritual monster or a Gaia the Fierce Knight monster from the deck to your hand. It has other effects that pertain to the Blackluster Soldier deck, but in this, it's just a field spell that says search Gaia, and that is good enough for me. Next, I play 3 copies of Galloping Gaia. Really good field spell here. Your opponent cannot activate cards or effects during the battle phase while you control a Gaia the Dragon Champion. That's very important for allowing us to OTK and for things not to pop off for our opponent not to pop off while we're trying it. And of course, it has one effect. You can activate one of the following during your turn. You can reveal a Gaia the Fierce Knight monster in your hand to add a level 5 dragon monster from your deck to your hand, or you can reveal a level 5 dragon monster in your hand to add a Gaia the Fierce Knight to your hand. So whichever piece we're missing, as long as we have one and this card, we can get the other piece, and that makes this a really good card. Next up, I am playing 3 copies of Spiral Fusion. Spiral Fusion, really awesome card. Fusion summon a Dragon Fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as fusion materials. And then, of course, special summon. If you special summon Gaia the Dragon Champion by this effect, it gains 2600 attack. Also, it can make up to 2 attacks on monsters during the battle phase. So pretty nice. If our opponent has some little monsters on the field, we can do a lot of damage to them. And an extra 2600 attack is going to put the Gaias at 52. 2 attacks, that's a lot of damage that can be done through monsters, which is one of the awesome things about this deck. Next up, I'm playing 2 copies of Spiral Spear Strike. Pretty cool classic card. If Gaia the Fierce Knight, Swift Gaia the Fierce Knight, or Gaia the Dragon Champion you control attacks a defense position monster, you can inflict battle damage to your opponent. And, of course, if you do this with Gaia the Dragon Champion, inflicts battle damage with this effect, you can draw 2 cards and discard 1 card. So that is a +1, gets you through your deck, allows us to do piercing, which is nice. Makes this an awesome card to have. And it's even stacks if you have multiple of them, which is why I play 2 of them. Next, I'm playing 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance. Other than making the Gaia fusions, there's not a ton we can do with the extra deck in this particular build, and we can just max out on the Gaia fusions so you can use Extravagance to get extra cards, banish 6 random extra deck cards, and draw 2. We'll take that. Next, I'm playing 1 copy of Monster Reborn. Sometimes getting a monster out of our opponent's graveyard or out of ours just gives us 1 extra body on the field to close out a game, turn our solid damage into a full OTK, and I like that. For a similar reason, I'm playing Change of Heart, great for baiting out negates, great for taking control of monsters to push for an OTK, just a really good card to have. Next, I'm playing 1 copy of Lightning Storm. Definitely a card I'd consider bumping up if I get another copy. But Lightning Storm, of course, if I control no face-up cards, can destroy all spells and traps or all face-up attack position monsters my opponent controls. Either clear the field for me to OTK, which, very possible, or clear back row so that I don't have to worry about OTK, have to worry about playing through it. Also baits out negates, just a pretty good card. Next, I'm playing one copy of Harpy's Feather Duster. Destroys all spells and traps my opponent controls. I don't want to lose to my opponent's back row. And last for spells, I'm playing 3 copies of Raigeki, since this deck can just do so much damage to an opponent. Clearing their monsters and leaving their board open lets them do it. Raigeki destroys all monsters my opponent controls. Pretty nice card. And that is it for the spells. Lastly, for the traps, I'm only playing 1 trap, and that's just 1 copy of Infinite Impermanence to take up that last deck slot. I actually don't own any more Infinite Impermanence than this, but definitely worth bumping up if I get more copies. Like Ash Blossom, having an effect negation that I can play going first can help quite a bit in stifling my opponent just enough so I can OTK them. So definitely worth considering. It's hard to choose between this and the Gamma Seal. Definitely things to be cut in the future for more copies of this card. Because what makes this card cool is its monster effect negation, and if I don't control any cards, I can play this from my hand. So if it's in my hand, my opponent goes first, I can play it, negate their monster effect. Pretty awesome. And that is it for the main deck. So, going over the extra deck, I got 3 monsters to talk about that I am all playing at 3 copies because I want to make sure I keep at least 1 from after resolving a Pot of Extravagance. And that is, of course, Curse of Dragon, the Magical Night Dragon, Gaia, the Magical Knight of Dragons, and Sky Galloping Gaia, the Dragon Champion. All these are the great fusions that we can make with this deck. Starting with Curse of Dragon, the Magical Night Dragon requires a warrior monster and a level 5 or higher dragon monster. If you fusion summon a level 7 dragon fusion monster, you can also banish monsters from your graveyard as material. And of course, if this card is summoned, you can target a spell or trap in your graveyard that mentions Gaia the Dragon Champion and add it to your hand. So this card is a bit of a newer card that we got in this deck and is really awesome because we can make this with Spiral Fusion, and then of course put Spiral Fusion back in our hand and play Spiral Fusion again because there's no hard once per turn on Spiral Fusion, and use the materials we just used to fusion summon this from our graveyard, banish them, and make one of our Gaia the Dragon champions. What that results in is an extra 2,000 attack power to our end board, and that now allows this deck to regularly OTK if your opponent doesn't have monsters, which is pretty cool. Of course, Gaia the Magical Knight of Dragons is a sweet monster. 2600 attack, requires a Gaia the Fierce Knight monster and a level 5 dragon monster. This card names becomes Gaia the Dragon Champion, and while on the field, you can basically lower this card's attack by 2600, and if you do, you can pop a card, which is pretty cool. And then also, when this card destroys an opponent's card by battle, it gains 2600 attack. So if we pull it off Spiral Fusion, starts at 52, we can attack position monster, do a lot of damage, give it another 2600 attack, putting it all the way at 78, and that can definitely OTK through multiple attack position monsters, which is really good. And if we don't OTK, that ability to have a quick pop for just dropping some attack is a pretty good option to have. Definitely a great OTK piece. Next, we have Sky Galloping Gaia here, which requires a Gaia the Fierce Night monster and a dragon type monster. This card's name becomes Gaia the Dragon Champion while on the field. Of course, that means that both these cards work with Spiral Spear Strike. And what's nice about Sky Galloping Gaia, the Dragon Champion, is when this card's special summoned, it adds a Spiral Spear Strike, which is awesome. That's the spell card that we can use. It unlocks us the ability to do piercing damage. And of course, when this card declares an attack on an opponent's monster, you can change the battle position of that opponent's monster, which is pretty nice. We can use this to exploit whether the attack or defense of a monster is lower and manipulate that math so that our attacks turn into an OTK. And of course, we could just force everything to defense that we can in order to draw more cards off of Spiral Spear Strike. That's pretty awesome. And yeah, these 3 cards are great. Really a lot of fun. and the key OTK tools. I play all of them at 3 copies. For the rest of the X deck, it's kind of just filler. You know, you can have some rank 7 stuff for the Gaias, some level 4 stuff for a Catapult Turtle, and a Gaia the Fierce Knight summon like Baguska works. Uh, so, you know, whatever you want to put in it, all good. So that is it for my Gaia the Fierce Knight deck profile. Very fun deck that I love to play. Just summons big fusion monsters. I love seeing monsters with high attack, things that make the battle phase matter. Probably my favorite kinds of decks to play. So this deck is right at home. It's pretty simple, it's pretty accessible, and you know, just makes for fun, good going second strategies, and I enjoy it very much. But love to know what you think. What's your favorite Yugi monster from the Duel Monsters era? Love to know what you're doing with Gaia the Fierce Knight. I appreciate you checking out the video, and I'll catch you in the next one.